Hi, this week I'm installing an eXtremeRate PS5 RISE4 Plus Remap kit for a PS5 controller. So we just have a quick look inside. So it comes with the back of the controller with the cutout where the new buttons are going to go. I've gone for the metal version, so we've got metal buttons, and it's the 4-button version as well. There's also other versions. It comes with all the screws that you need and screwdrivers. These are the buttons that are going to be attached. A few flex cables, a few little pads. We'll just get everything out just to have a quick look. So a few flex cables in here, a few motherboards. Got a nice 10% discount code from eXtremeRate. The code is in the description. Please follow the links below. I'm installing it on a 010, but this kit can also be installed on the 020 as well. So a quick look at all the contents that we get. So I'm using this PS5 controller with an eXtremeRate faceplate that I've done in a previous video. I'll also link that in the description. So first off, we'll just open this bag and we'll take out the screwdriver and a little plastic lever to remove them. So we just take the 2 shoulder buttons off, they just gently lift up. And then we clip it at the bottom to unpeel this cover. So we do either side and then you just peel it up and it should just pop off and out. Then we have 4 screws that we need to remove. Then we just need to release these 2 white clips. And then once they're open, very carefully prise it apart. Don't do it too rough because you may have things, few clips that you don't want to break. So it should just peel off and then we disconnect the battery. So first screw is the battery holder. This takes the battery holder out. Also disconnect some of the speaker cables. Keep them to one side. And then straight away we'll disconnect all the ribbon cables that are on this motherboard because we're going to need to be adjusting the motherboard. Very carefully wiggle them all out. This one a bit tougher, but it can just be pulled out simple. So this is the first flex. So this is for the L3 R3 buttons. So this is an option. You can solder it on and then you'll be able to map these 2 analog stick buttons, or if you don't want to do any soldering, you don't have to attach this part, you just can't map to these 2 buttons. So if you don't want to do this bit, you can skip forward to the next section. So if you are doing it, we just slide it in place. It goes in the 2 top right hand corner analog stick buttons, just a bit of tape to keep it in place, and then we just attach it using a little bit of solder either side. This is the next part that we need, this ribbon cable connector. So as I said before, I'm using the 010 kit, so I just need to make sure I get the right one. There is 2 in the kit, and then it slides in just as I'm showing. So wiggle it in and then just close the clasp so it locks it into place. Then this is the next part that we need. This goes on where the connections lie. This connects it to the motherboard, so you just pop it in place. So I did notice on mine, it constantly moved. It didn't seem to hold it nice and solid. So what I did, where I've circled here, is attach a little tiny piece, the black foam tape that it comes with, or you could use some capped on tape just on the bottom edge, and this just holds it in place so it doesn't move when you reattach the motherboard later. Then we fold the motherboard over, pop it back into place. Don't trap any of the ribbon cables, just get them all out. So we carefully pull this side ribbon cable out. And then while we're at it, we might as well do the other side as well. And then we make sure we get the 010 connection. And then we pop it in the way that I'm currently showing. So we just slide it into the connection on the side of the controller. Just make sure it goes in nice and straight and as far as it can. And then we bend it over and the other connection goes into the motherboard connection. And then we leave this little bit at the top until we get to a little bit further on. Then we have this ribbon cable here, which we don't want to forget, so we just bend it over, and the new connection that's being added, we just slide that into place, and then that should be like that with the tab sticking up. Now we've got this other ribbon cable that goes on the other side, so this just slides in to the side of the motherboard. And then it folds over and goes into the other side of the controller. So this bit is a little bit tough. It took me a few attempts to get it in correctly, but it will slide in. Just make sure it's as far as it goes. So now we can get the battery holder connector back in place. So just move all the ribbon cables out the way, and then pop the screw back in to make it nice and secure. Pop the battery back in already as well. And just again put that in position, moving all the ribbon cables. Now we can get the main board in position. So on the back it's got a bit of double-sided tape, so we just fold that over and then stick it down on top of the battery, just get it close to the edge. And then we just want to connect a couple of the ribbon cables along the side, so put the cables in, push them in as far as you can and make sure the latches are closed. I did notice that it doesn't feel like a lot of them go in very far, but they do go in. So here you've got to pick whether it's 010 or 020. You are supposed to cut the one off that you don't use, but because I don't know whether I might change the controller in the future, all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold over the cable I'm not going to use, and then I'm going to put a little bit of Kapton tape on it later. Then we just pop the little speaker connection back in as well, just get that connected and lined up. And now we can move on to the back clicky buttons. So these are the metal ones, as I said before. So we get the housing and the 4 buttons out. So it comes with a couple of pins in the bag along with the screws. So these longer pins are the ones that you need. So they just push through the holes on the side, and then you just line them up and clip them into place, making sure you're doing it as a show so they go on the right side. Then we'll get the new rear housing, and then we'll attach the buttons to the back of it, making sure it's lined up. So there's 2 different size screws in the back, smaller ones and slightly longer ones. So it is the slightly longer ones that you need to use. So we just put the 4 screws in the back. Again, don't over tighten it, you don't want to be stripping any threads. Just make sure it's nice and secure and flush, which this one is. Now moving on to these clicky buttons, so what we need to do is get these red tabs. So these are double-sided tape, so we put them on the back of this ribbon cable. So these are the slidey buttons we're going to use. So we just need to remove the double-sided backing off that side and that side. And then just check the orientation that I'm holding everything, and make sure you put them in the same position as me. So this just clips in at the top. So line up and then push it nice and tight so the sticky adheres. And then on the back of this small micro switch is a little bit more double-sided tape. So there's some holes on this, you can line up and then these will fit in nice and snug. And then we do the same on the other side, making sure the tape is pushed on nice and firmly. Take the double-sided tape off the small micro switch, and then this lines up with the 2 holes in the right correct position. Then we get these white slidey switches. Again, just make sure they're in the same orientation as I'm putting them, and these just simply push on. And then what happens is these click across and it will create a nice tactile switch on the back. Push them into place. You can give them a little slide if you want to check they work. So we go back to the back housing, and then we'll just line them up on the back, making sure they are in line with the screw holes. And they look correct on the back. And then we get the slightly smaller screws on this, and then there's 3 on either side. Just screw them in, and then that's it, all nice and secure. So we just fold this ribbon cable over. So what we want to do is give it a quick test to make sure that there's not too much movement in these buttons that we just attached. So we're going to put it back together as minimal as possible. So you just need to thread the ribbon cable through the back and then clip it all back into place. Make sure it's all clipped into the top and clipped into the bottom. Now the shoulder button should work as normal. They just push down nice and gentle. Now with these clicky buttons, what we should do is we should slide these white sliders across, and then they should just have minimal movement and you just click once or twice. So depending on how much movement there is, you can add these little extra tabs if you want to. So take the cover back off, just have the button slid open, and then you attach these little stickers to the edge, and then this will eliminate how much movement there is when you press the tactile buttons down. So some people may need them, some people don't. You're supposed to now leave this for 24 hours and this goes nice and hard and they'll set nice and strong. So you can put it back together and give it another test if you want. I've done that, I'm not showing it on camera, and I'm happy with the amount of movement, so I don't think I need to add any more. So now going back to putting back together, bit of Kapton tape on to cover the extra connection that didn't cut off. Now what we need to do is attach this ribbon cable that's on the back to the actual board itself. So it's a bit hard to line it up to get it nice and close, especially on the camera. But once again, make sure it's pushed as far as it physically can, and then once it is, just push the tab over. Then that's all the connections made. So it comes with a bit of Kapton tape. So place this over the board itself. Again, this will eliminate any potential shorts. Make sure it's fully covered. Then the one ribbon cable that's left, we need to gently thread this through the hole. You don't want to be twisting it, you don't want to be getting trapped. So pop it through, and then again, we just put the back plate back on together. So clip it along the top, click it along the edges, and then the 2 clips at the bottom. Make sure it's all nice and tight around the edges and it's all fitted correctly. So this ribbon cable, just gently bend it around a little bit just to get into place. Then we'll get this other motherboard, and then the ribbon cable just slides into the back of it. Just fold the tab over, fold the ribbon cable in, and then this gently tucks into place. We have 2 of the slightly longer screws that go into place along the top. Again, don't over tighten. And finally moving on to the metal back cover plate. So it comes with a little LED sensor that goes on the top, the select button. So it comes with these foam pads as well. So the idea of this is you can lay them around the edges. This one will hold the button in place, and then these ones are to try and eliminate any extra metal noise for when you're pressing the buttons. Once you've got all your pads in place, just use the plastic spudger to prise it open a little bit. This will try and get it all into shape a little bit more, and it will help with the settling in period. So you just clip it on at the top and then push hard at the bottom and it'll click into place. So all the buttons should click okay. But when I did it, the select button for some reason wasn't pressing. So I took it apart a couple of times, making sure that there wasn't too much foam underneath, making sure it all lined up properly. And for the life of me, I just struggled to be able to get the select button to press down. I don't know what happened. So I put it under the microscope to have a little look, and I couldn't see any issues with it. I can see it's slightly angled. Obviously this is the way it goes in. So I decided to take a bit of a gamble. I realised when I was putting the back plate on, it was attaching far too tightly, so there wasn't any movement for it to be able to press the button. It was just holding the button down constantly. But I decided I needed to grind the tip off just a little bit, maybe a mil, half a mil at most. Also needing to make sure that I keep it in the same position and the same angle, because again this is going to affect it. It's easy to take too little off than too much, so just took a little bit off and then made sure I checked it before going too far and taking too much off. Put it all back together, clipped it back on, and now as you can see, I'm getting the clicky button and the clicky side buttons also work. So I'm not sure why this happened. I'm not sure whether it was my issue or something else, but obviously it's been sorted now. Quite easy, just taking a little bit off. And then that's the hardest part done. So we'll just pop the screws back in. So the 2 screws go into the top shoulder buttons. Then the 2 screws at the bottom. We put this faceplate back on. You just slide the tabs in at the top and then just clip it down all around. It all just clips into place, nice and simple. And then the shoulder buttons, just make sure you get the right one, line it up properly, and then just push it into place. And then that's it, it's done. So overall, it wasn't the hardest of mods. It's nice that you can choose to solder or not solder. It comes with all the connections that you need for an 010 or 020 model. As you'd expect from eXtremeRate, it's really high quality, which we are used to now. All links for the parts that I use are in the description below. And also don't forget about that discount code where you can get an extra 10% off all your orders. So now I'm going to show you how to configure. So I'm just going to quickly show you connected to gamepad tester to show that the buttons are all still working as expected. And then I click the buttons on the back and then nothing's showing up, so it's not being configured yet. So now you want to hold the select button down for 5 seconds. And the light should start flashing, and this means it's ready to configure. So it needs to be configured in order K1, K2, K3, K4. So you hold whatever button you want to configure and then hold K1. Then the same with K2. Then the same with K3. And then the same with K4. As you press each one, you just keep hold of it till the light flashes, and then that means it's configured. Then you hold the select button again for 5 seconds and then it should stop flashing. Now if we have it back on the control pad, so I've set all the shoulder buttons to correspond with the back buttons, so they still work along the top. Now if we click over and we click the new back buttons, now all 4 buttons have been configured. Obviously you can do this with any of the face buttons, including the L3 and R3. But it just shows how nice and easy and quick and simple it is to configure these 4 buttons on the back. Now if you want to reset it, all you need to do is hold down at the same time left, up, L1, R1, triangle, circle. Hold it down for a few seconds and then it should flash red, and this shows that it's reset. And now if we go back to the gamepad tester and we click the buttons on the back, as you can see they don't do anything, they've all been reset to nothing. And you can set up a few different profiles as well, so you can have different buttons for different games. All you need to do is double press the button and you can see the colour changes, and this shows that it's got different profiles. So hopefully this guide's helped. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.